Welcome back. We're going to do a little series here called Fishing Tackle 101. Basically, just going to give you my opinions on the fishing tackle you should use. By giving you my experience with the fishing tackle that's worked good for me and in my certain situation. I like to fish Ozark streams mainly. I fish mainly for bass and also larger goggle eye, bluegill, whatever the case. But the points I'm going to make today about the fishing I do is going to translate to any type of fishing that you do, because we're going to go to the very basics of fishing tackle. I'm going to dispel a couple myths. I'm going to talk about really just simplify it down. Just really get down to the basis and just talk about what you really need to know, because everything else is not necessary. So why should you listen to me? I'm just giving my opinion. So take it for whatever you think it's worth. The best place to get expert opinion on bass fishing, of course, is the professionals. The only thing about the professionals is that they're very trendy. They're all throwing the same thing. It's there's a new lure that comes out, or a new style that comes out, new rig style that comes out, and they're all doing that. And it's the big thing. And so they get very trendy. So they're all doing what's been working recently. But did the stuff that they used to do 20 years ago, is it less good? I don't think so. So they're very trendy. They're all throwing the same thing, whatever's popular. And I understand that, because they probably get bored. All you do is fish bass your entire life, every single day, or most of your days, and something new comes out, you're all over it, and it's exciting because it's new. So anyway, I'm just going to give you some quick tips. This is just going to be an introduction to the series, but I'm going to give you some extremely valuable tips right here that's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of money. Number one, everything you've heard is true. Okay? Every lure that you see works. That's the number one thing you got to realize. There is somebody that can take any lure on this planet and go catch a fish with it. Make a YouTube video, show pictures on a website, whatever the case. So, there's trillions of lures out there, it seems like. They all work, okay? Some work better than others. Some work in different situations, but they all work. So if you feel overwhelmed at the number of lures that are out there, whether they're hard baits or whether they're spinner baits or whether they're soft plastics, it's a legitimate concern to be overwhelmed, because they all work. And there's so many colors. Every single lure has got like 20 or 30 different colors, and there's different sizes and different hook sets or hook sizes. So what on earth are you supposed to do? Well, that's the whole point of this video, is to boil it down. So first of all, get the thought process out of your mind, what works and what doesn't work. It all works. Okay. Just in different scenarios, but just forget about that. Don't try to narrow it down by what you think works and what doesn't work, because it all works. Now, 90% of fishing tackle design, fishing lure design, is intended to catch you and me. Okay? These amazing holographic lures and awesome paint jobs that are on there, and different colors, and just these extra things that they add to some of these lures are completely and totally unnecessary. They're really cool. I respect the design. I respect the person who designed that and set up the manufacturing process or whatever the case. It's cool. And that's the whole point. I think it's cool. I think it's better, because you put more time and money into a lure design, it's got to be better. So I'm willing to spend $15 on that lure versus $1 on a very similar lure. Is that $15 lure better than that $1 lure? Possibly. A little bit, but not worth 15 times the money. So most lures are meant to catch you. So when you're walking down a Bass Pro or a Walmart aisle and you're looking at all these lures, your eyes get drawn to that one that looks so neat, and you just got to have it. So the next thing you got to realize is you don't need to spend a lot of money. You do not need to spend a lot of money. Do I have expensive lures? I do. But I understand I don't need them. It's just me. I just wanted to buy it because I just really liked it. So I understand how that works. And in follow-up videos, I will go over some of the tackle that I use. But let me give you a quick story. I wasn't there on this particular day, but I heard it from multiple people. My family was at the lake fishing off the bank. And my nephew, young at the time, was trying a couple things, couldn't get nothing to catch. I even think they were using like worms and stuff, like real worms. Finally, he found a piece of carpet, okay, a little piece of carpet that came out of somebody's boat, sitting there in the chat or, you know, on the bank somewhere. And he grabbed it, put it on a hook, and caught 7 or 8 fish on it in a shorter period of time. So those fish ate that carpet, piece of carpet. So you got to realize fish are not smart. They're not intelligent at all. They have a very short-term memory. They can wise up to some things over time, but not much at all. You know, if you go to the same spot every single day and you throw the same lure, eventually they're just not even thinking about it. They're just going to know this is just not right. But fish are not smart. Fish are not thinking this thing through. All that matters is that it looks semi-natural to them. And I don't even think that they think that. Well, they definitely don't think that. But it's an instinct. It's a reaction. Fishing is reactionary. That's all it is. You have to figure out how they feed, when they feed, and try to mimic a bait. That's all that you're doing, and trying to get them to react. That's the complete thing. And a piece of carpet apparently can do that at times. So fish are not smart. They're completely instinctual. Okay? Fishing is very pattern oriented. Can't say it. And anyone who's fishing knows this. You get out there with your favorite lure, you're not catching nothing. The guy next to you is catching everything. You switch lures, you start catching everything. But yet the lure you were using to begin with, you were doing great with last week. Why is his lure doing better today? It's just the particular pattern, okay? I've even fished with a guy in the same boat throwing the same lure with 2 different size jig heads, and he would catch a big fish every time. I'd catch a small one every single time. I switched over to the bigger jig head. I'm catching bigger fish. How does that work? Why does that work? It's all pattern. So every single day there's a new pattern. Now, you fish it enough, you get enough experience, you start to learn patterns, you start to understand. Generally speaking, this should be what happens today. And you can narrow it down and get pretty close a lot of times. But there's times even the pros get out there and everything is so clear to them. Everything makes complete sense. It's like they know what to use as soon as they wake up because of patterns and experiences, okay? And they get out there and it doesn't work. And they intellectually cannot explain why it doesn't work. It's just the particular pattern. Moon phases matter, okay? Weather matters. Definitely weather matters. Wind is a big thing. Wind might be the most important thing of all. Wind can screw up fishing, okay? You hear people talk about water clarity and clouds versus sunlight. That stuff is actually very important, and I will talk about that later. But wind conditions, climate, whatever pattern is happening on that particular day. So all that matters. Honestly, I wouldn't worry too much about it. There will be a video on patterns that I'll give you the things you really should be concerned with, but most of it I wouldn't worry too much about it. You don't want to go crazy with this, guys. The whole point of this is to make it simple. Okay, so we're going to have special videos going on later about what actually I use and what works. But the point of this first video is I want you just to realize you can make this so complicated. It doesn't need to be complicated, okay? Here's 2 tips I'm going to give you on this first video. Number 1, fish at the right spot. Okay, and I'll talk about that later in a video, but you have to go to the right spot for that particular day. And if you're not at the right spot, more than likely you're not going to be catching fish. So way, way, way more important than the type of lure that you're using is if you're fishing at the right place at the right time, okay? We'll talk more about that later, but fish the right spot. And then number two, let me break all of lures down to you in a very simple couple sentences, okay? Fish what's natural, okay? If that doesn't work, use amplifiers to your lure. Say, what are you talking about, amplifiers? Things that amplify the senses to the fish, whether it's a sound you're amplifying, whether it's a visual that you're amplifying, whether it's a taste that you're amplifying. Whatever sense you're going for, use some kind of amplifier, okay? Metal flake could be an amplifier. A chartreuse tail on a jig could be an amplifier. A rattle, something that you're adding a rattle to a jig could be an amplifier. A spinner bait, the spinner itself is an amplifier. So things like that amplify the bait. In all honesty, if the fish are biting your natural lure without an amplifier, you probably don't need to be using one. So go with what's natural. When it comes to colors, go with what's natural, okay? Especially for your particular river, lake, whatever the case. Go with what is natural. The only time that you don't go with what's natural is when what's natural is not working for maybe different reasons. Maybe the water clarity, maybe wind, whatever the case. And then if that is the case, use some type of amplifier. So you might start using a bright green chartreuse color or a black color that's not natural, but they're not biting, so you're going to have to get them to react, okay? You're going to have to do something to get them to see your lure in muddy water. You're going to have to do something to get them to hear your lure, like a buzz bait or a chatterbait. You're going to have to do something to make your lure more enticing to the fish, okay? That's an amplifier. So the most natural of all lures is live bait, of course. So if you want to catch the most fish, go with natural lures. When I was a kid, my dad would take me fishing. We would find a good spot, and we would sit there, and we never moved. We basically just sit in that one spot. We had dug up night crawlers out of the soil beforehand, and all we would do is hook up a small hook with a night crawler and throw it out there and let it sit. We caught a lot of fish, a lot of fish. My dad would come home with a mess of fish every single time. We were going after, bluegill and sunfish and green sunfish, goggle-eye, whatever the case, fish that we were going to fillet and eat. If you want a ton of fish, go with what's natural. Also go with what's smaller. So if you want the most bites, if you're using artificial lures and you are using soft plastic like a 2-inch grub, that's going to catch you a lot of fish, okay? 3-inch grub, 4-inch grub, 5-inch grub, the bigger you get, the less fish that you're going to catch, okay? But the bigger fish you're probably going to catch. Now, I've caught big bass on 2-inch grubs before. I threw a crankbait out there that was this long and caught a sunfish one time that was that long, and I'm not making that up. I couldn't believe it even got one of the little treble hooks in its mouth. I'd never even seen a long-eared sunfish that was that small. So I understand how that can work, but generally speaking, smaller, more natural lures will catch you more fish, okay? And natural to its extreme, of course, is live bait. But we're not here to talk about live bait. I don't want to catch 200 fish and throw back 120, 190 of them and take home 10 that I've culled through and went through a bunch of worms. It's just not fun. Fishing lures, fishing tackle is a blast. So that's what we're talking about. But even with that, the most natural looking, smallest lures are going to catch you the most fish. If you're trying to catch bigger fish, the bigger lures are also going to catch bigger fish, generally speaking, but you're going to catch less. But if you're like me and you mainly like to catch bass because it's so fun, mainly catch and release, that's what you're looking for. There are days I go out there gonna catch a big bass. That's my only goal, is catch a giant bass. And then nothing's biting and I'm catching nothing. Yeah, I will shrink down to a smaller size just to catch a few fish, just to make the day seem worthwhile. But generally speaking, I'm trying to get the bigger fish. Now I fish on a river or a creek, so I'm not fishing lake-size lures. That's what I call lake-size lures. I'm fishing river-size lures. But all this we will talk about in upcoming videos. So stay tuned for that. This is going to be the Fishing Tackle 101 series. But basically, this is just an introduction. So hopefully this is interesting to you. Hopefully my opinion matters to you, at least to somewhat. If you completely disagree with any of my points, awesome. Put it in the comments. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'll read it and think, I think that person's right. So let me know. Please subscribe and like this video, and take care.